Hi there, this is Lindsay with North End Organic Nursery, and here is your Garden Minutes. So today we're going to plant tomatoes, and we've done a video about planting tomatoes before in the ground. Today's focus is going to be quickly and cheaply, and actually in some ways better, we're going to be planting them in a fabric container. The advantages of doing a fabric container include the fact that we don't have to worry about the soil getting warm. Once we get all of our soil in here and the tomato planted, weeds aren't going to be an issue. If you don't have a garden space, that can go on a deck. It can go in a random spot that maybe the soil is bad. There's so many advantages to container gardening. I find more and more of them every year. So this year, in this area, I've decided to cover it with some weed fabric. Now, weed fabric is not usually a product that I like to use. It kind of suffocates the soil. It doesn't really very well block out weeds per se, because anytime you put weed fabric down and dirt can get on top, a weed will grow on top, it'll bust through. However, I broke my own rules this time. Usually I would use cardboard. Cardboard will decompose though, and at some point it just becomes another weedy section. So to buy myself a few years, I actually used a 30-year weed fabric here and covered it with a thick layer of mulch. Is this going to suffocate my soil underneath? Yes, but I'm not worried about that because everything above ground is where I want to grow. And having this nice mulch will be a great spot for my fabric bed to get drainage. So that's what we're doing here. I have my raised beds over here that I'll show later, and they're doing great and they're touching the ground, and that's exactly how I want to do them. But tomatoes just went so well for me last year doing them in this container type system, and this year I just don't want to have to worry about the weeds around them. So this is what we're going to be using today. This is called a dirt pot. I found that the 25-gallon size is ideal, and it's not very expensive. I think this one's $12.79. They last for about 5 years. They're made out of recycled water bottles, and they're also BPA free. So lots of advantages. You're using something that's a recycled product, and it's nice and breathable too. So opening this up, for a full-size tomato, which is what I'm going to be growing, this is a 25-gallon pot. It's perfect. I'm going to be filling this up with approximately 3 cubic feet of soil. So my bags that I'm using here are 2 cubic feet. So I'm going to be using 1.5 bags. To amend the soil, and it's really important to amend the soil well, even with great bagged product going into here. This planting mix has got great ingredients in it, but we really need some fertilizer that will assure certain nutrients will go into the soil. So this is my first product that I am using. This is an all-purpose, and now you can see it has the tomato on it, and it's a 4-6-2. A 4-6-2 is 4% nitrogen, 6% phosphorus, and 2% potassium. The nice thing with this is that we want a lower first number and a larger middle number when we are dealing with fruiting and flowering plants. The other really important thing about a good fertilizer is that you want to make sure that it has calcium in it. This particular product has 10% calcium. That's great, because with tomatoes, calcium is an integral nutrient in order to prevent a condition called blossom end rot. This is very prevalent in paste type tomatoes like Romas, and it's a real bummer when you have it. It looks like the sunken in part of the bottom of the blossom end of the fruit looks like it's rotting, and it is rotting, and I'll show you a picture of it right here. So having enough calcium in there in the beginning really helps to prevent that. Also, when I'm using a bag soil, it'll help me to make sure that the pH is already kind of adjusted. A lot of times our soils can be very alkaline, and alkaline soils don't mobilize calcium very well. So the combination of a pH balanced soil and available calcium is really good. Now brand is Down to Earth. There's lots of great brands out there. Just look for something that has both a higher middle number for the phosphorus, because that's roots, fruits, flowers, and sweetness is what we're going for with phosphorus, and also has the calcium in there. The ingredients in this one's really nice. It's fishbone meal, blood meal, feather meal, alfalfa meal, rock phosphate, langbonite, and kelp meal. Love kelp. If it didn't have kelp already mixed into this, I would also be adding kelp to this mix, but because kelp is already in here, I'm all done. So my next product is Azomite. I talk about this in almost every video. I add this to my garlic beds, to my raised beds, to absolutely anything and everything that I grow, because it replaces minerals that are harvested out every time you grow a crop. It improves the nutritional content of your plants and definitely improves the flavor. So a little bit of this will go into the pot as well. So I've got my two products here. Once I've planted it, I've actually got a tomato cage because the size of this pot is perfect to actually put a tomato cage right into it. And I can grow as big of a tomato in this pot as I could in the ground, maybe bigger. So I'm gonna start opening up my bags of soil and dumping it in here. Now that I have the first bag emptied into here, this is an opportune time to put our fertilizers in. I'm gonna be adding a little bit more soil because, as you can see, we didn't quite fill up the bag, and I want as much soil for my tomatoes to root out in. And I'm gonna put the fertilizer in now. Now, people have often asked, are these bags good for like tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers and such? Absolutely. With a pepper, you might not need 25 gallons to do the trick. You could probably get away with like a 15-gallon pot. I've actually done some smaller type tomatoes in 15, even 10-gallon pots before, and that does fine. But I'm gonna be growing honkin' tomatoes in here, like Cherokee purples and other type of like heirloom types that will get 7-8 feet tall later on. So I wanna make sure. Now I'm adding just a couple of handfuls into here, maybe 2 or 3 handfuls, kind of working it in. Gonna take my Azomite, and probably about a handful, good solid handful. This soil is brand new and hasn't been used, so it's got lots of nutrients already in it. I don't need to overdo it. Azomite's especially good when you're using soil from a previous year. So if this was my tomato pot from last year, I could easily kind of refresh it by adding a little extra soil, because when you pull out the tomato, it's going to take some soil with it. The fertilizer, but the Azomite, I'd probably add 2 handfuls next year because I'm going to be working with a soil that's already had some depletion going on with it. So, got my Azomite in. I have my tomato vegetable all-purpose fertilizer in. See if I can get it back in the box. And now I'm going to put another half a bag. Now there's another product made by Gardener and Bloom that I really like called Raised Bed Mix. It's really comparable. The nice thing about the raised bed mix, I guess, is the fact that it is 3 cubic feet already. So I wouldn't have to be opening up 2 different bags, but oh well, this is what I have here today, and I really like it. I use the planting mix in my raised beds too every year as a refresher. I love putting it into my beds to kind of give me a nice, lovely plantable space. And then I will follow up after the season's going with another product called Harvest Supreme. And the Harvest Supreme has lots of good nutrients in it that, as you water your vegetables throughout the season, kind of filter down into it. It's not something that I plant directly into. It has a little bit of chicken compost in it, and chicken compost can run a little rich in the nutrients, and we don't want to overdo it. So I'm gonna go grab my tomato and I'll be right back and we'll get this planted up. So before I plant this, we want to do a little bit of plant prep. And this little guy in here, this was a branch, this little guy in here is called a sucker. Now I'm gonna actually take off all of these lower branches. I'm just using this as an example, and actually there's another good example of a sucker up there, and some flowers. These are all going. Suckers will become other leader branches, and my plant is way too young to be having children, so I am taking off those flowers too. It has no business trying to make flowers and fruit before it's established itself, right? So I'm gonna pluck off my lower branches, and usually it's about half the height of the tomato. Honestly, I am gonna go a little bit higher. I think that's gonna be a really nice depth. So along the length of the stem here, there are all these little fuzzy aerial roots. So when this guy gets planted deep into the ground, those little fuzzy things will actually turn into roots, help the plant establish faster, and ultimately grow bigger and healthier in the long run. So that's a good thing. So today I'm going to be growing a green grape tomato. I've got a natural aversion towards green tomatoes only because it feels like it's not ripe, but I am overcoming that aversion every year. This is one of the sweetest tomatoes I have ever eaten outside of like a Sun Gold. And I tried it accidentally because we planted a bunch of them outside the nursery one year, and I was just shocked. It's one of my top 5 tomatoes now. So this one, along with the other green Russian variety called the Malakatovaya Shkoltulka, and I'm probably butchering that name, also another green tomato, 2 delicious sweet tomatoes. Okay, so I'm going to be digging just a nice deep hole. One of the advantages too of being able to do it in a container like this is digging a hole is not hard. Oh, I forgot one little additive, a tablespoon of Epsom salts. I'm gonna go back and grab that here after we're done shooting just because I forgot it right now. But a little bit of Epsom salts helps to stiffen the stem, and it provides, it's magnesium sulfate, so it provides the essential nutrient of magnesium and also sulfur, which is important for chlorophyll production. So I will go back and add this in there. You can actually add it in a water-based form too. You don't want to add a ton of it. It is a salt, but a little bit is good. So burying it down nice and deep, pulling my soil up to it. And that's it. I've got my planted tomato, and this guy is ready to go. So this guy's ready to be caged. It doesn't have to get caged right now, but don't make the mistake that I often make of caging them too late where it's hard to then weave them through. So one of my favorite new types of cages, we do have them at Neon, is these foldable cages, because at the end of the year, when I'm done with my tomatoes, I just pull them out, fold them flat, they go into my cupboard really nicely, and look how beautifully that fits into this pot. So I now have tomato, bag, soil, pot, fertilizer, cage, all in one tidy package that won't get any weeds. The soil's exactly what I know it is. I don't have to worry about that. And at the end of the year, I don't have a whole lot of cleanup to do. So another alternative when you are planting your tomatoes coming up, and hopefully this is something that works out for you all. Thanks for joining me today. This is Lindsay from North End Organic Nursery and Garden Minutes. And if you like this video and want to see more, please subscribe to our channel and hit to turn on the notifications and give us a thumbs up. Any questions, please leave a comment and I will try to get back to you. I hope you guys all have a wonderful spring and happy tomato planting.